Hello everyone. This is a presentation on how to write a high impact social outreach hour and educational tour report. This is for M.Sc, Biotechnology, Botany, Geology and Microbiology students from semester 2. And this is our reference point here. This is the syllabus for M.Sc Biotechnology, and I assume this would be pretty much the same for other streams as well. So what is expected here? What This is as per your department notification, okay? It's mandatory to have an educational study tour or field study tour. These are supervised by your department faculties. The page limit is 25 pages. Report submissions are as part of assignment. Evaluations are done by a department committee, and these submissions are made to respective department office. Now, the first fundamental question is, what is an EST FST report? So it's not just your normal travel diary or a personal blog. It's an academic documentation of your learning experiences, your scientific analysis of the field observation, your integration of the theoretical knowledge with the real world, then a critical reflection on the industrial application you are investigating about, and then these documents are structured according to the academic standards. This is a brief overview of the structure of your report. You have the preliminary pages here, and then the main body, and then the references and appendices. So this is the page allocation, like how these 25 pages are distributed across your abstract, then the main body, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then your references and appendices are not included in the page numbers. Now the preliminary pages, these are the starting pages within your report and what you have to include in ours university. These are like your title page, your declaration by the candidate, certification by HOD, certificate by the principal, your internal and external faculty, the acknowledgement which will be tailored according to your needs, then the table of content, list of figures, list of tables. Okay, this can be generated automatically if the text is arranged based on sections and subsections and properly formatted. So try to learn this, this is very important as a student of science. And then finally you have the list of abbreviations. For understanding how the title page format is, visit your library and see how your previous students have done it, and confirm with your faculty what is expected currently from you. Now let's look at the abstract writing. This is the fundamental, the first part of your report. Usually the reader reads or skims through the abstract to decide if they really want to investigate or read further your report. So make sure you have done a good job here. So the word limit here for abstract writing is around 200 to 250 words. Okay, you start with the background, like purpose of your study tour, your objectives which you are going to accomplish, the methodology you're going to use for data collection, then what was your key observation here, and finally conclude it with a main learning outcome. Okay, now here you see this keywords, 4 to 5 relevant terms. So this you leave for last. Once a report is written, you will find like there are 4 or 5 important keywords which you should add. So that would be added below this abstract. Okay, after the abstract is written, you just add those keywords here. So this usually is written after you have written, as I mentioned earlier. So keep that in mind. Now let's look at the first chapter here, which is your introduction. Introduction is where you are basically explaining the motive, like why you had to go for this industrial or the field trip, and what all you have to include here. First of all, the background context, like what is the importance of the exposure in life sciences for these field trips. Second is the relevance to your curriculum. What all theoretical concepts you can, basically relate to when you are in the field trip which you have studied in your semester 1 and you are currently studying in semester 2, and why there is a need for practical or industrial exposure. Finally, you have to add here the objective of your study tour, like primary objectives, which would be 3 to 4, then followed by secondary objectives, which would be 2 to 3. Then, what would be your personal learning goal here? Now, about writing, you have to use the action verb, like you are basically performing a process, right? So, for example, to observe and document, to analyze and compare. These are few examples. And then this example you can look here, to observe and document the industrial scale production of an antibiotic. And then you can insert the company name where you have visited and compare with the laboratory scale techniques studied in the class. Now, next chapter is tour description. If you look at from dissertation point of view, this is your literature review. But here you have to give the details about your tour as well. So the first part will be the tour overview where you are stating like how many days you are gone there for, what would be the duration, and who all are accompanying you in this journey. Okay, and then you have to add the overall itinerary here. Then second part will be the sites you're planning to visit. Basically, you have to profile the sites, why you're visiting them, where they are located, what is the significance of those sites. Okay. And we have an outline here so you can follow this. Like for site description, follow this guideline, like what is the site name, suppose you're visiting Biocon Bengaluru, okay, then what is the location and establishment details, what are the core activities and specializations of this industry, how is it related to your curriculum, and duration of your visit and activities conducted over there. Okay, so this, if you can follow the same consistent guideline, that way the report will look better. Okay, and if you're visiting more than one site, then you follow the same um, pattern here. Now let's look at the tour itinerary table. Here you have to give the details like when you were in that site, for how much time you were there, what kind of activities were performed, and who was the faculty in charge with you. Okay, so lab tours include like activities, maybe lab tour, process demo, interaction with the scientist or other employees over there in that site. Okay, so um, try to include this. Okay, now let's look at the methodology. So in method you have to basic a methodology you have to include like right from the scratch. Okay, like pre-tour preparation, what all you did, like what was the background research you did on those sites, did you prepare any observation checklist, did you prepare any questionnaire development, like what all questions you're going to ask over there if you get a chance, and what would be the ethical consideration if you're visiting that site. So being a science student, you have to be very sensitive about this part, the ethical consideration, because if someone is letting you in their facility, you have to maintain the absolute decorum needed. Okay, so that they are welcoming to other students as well in future. Fine. Then the next part is here the data collection method. So you have to have the direct observation, like how you're collecting the data. Is it just the direct observation? Are you planning on doing photography? And if you're planning on doing photographies, do you have the due permission to do so? Then what would be, or it would be the note taking process. Would it be interview or semi-structured discussion? And then finally, collection of any kind of literature or brochure which is being provided by that respective site. This is an example of an observation checklist. Suppose you're visiting an industry and suppose you are planning on looking at some processes. Then this is some parameters which you can keep in mind. Like when you visited that site, did you had an opportunity to see the raw material handling and storage facility, sterilization procedures, fermentation process control, downstream processing, quality control measures, waste management systems, safety protocols. Next would be in checklist like the equipments you observed over there in the on the that site, okay, like the bioreactor types and their capacities. Were they using chromatography systems, certification equipments, lyophilizers, analytical instruments? Now let's look at the ethical consideration. So when you're planning on doing a field study, do you have the required permission to take photographs? You have to follow the confidentiality of the proprietary information, respect for the institutional rules, appropriate behavior at site, accurate documentation without any exaggeration, and then never forget to give the due credit for the information you receive. Okay. Now let's look at the next chapter. Here we are focusing on the observation and data. So after collection of the data and the methodology part, how you are going to organize that data or what you are going to infer out of it. Okay, so organize your data on following subheadings like site, wise observation, what you observed at the site, what was the process of documentation, what kind of technologies were used at that respective site, what was the infrastructure detail for that respective site, and what is the human resource information for that site, like the labor distribution, like how that is being managed over there, how many employees are working at that site, all those informations. Okay. Now, what all you have to include site-wise observation structure. So first, like you were visiting a site, so name the site, then what kind of physical infrastructure they are using, what are the key processes that are being performed at that site, what kind of technology is being deployed at that site, then the scale of operation. Are those setups small scale, medium scale, or large scale? Then the safety and the quality measures that were taken. And finally, the environmental considerations. And for all this, if you have the photographic references or the evidences, that way your report looks better. For example, here, you're visiting a fermentation unit observation at some company. You get to see the bioreactor. So you need to be extremely uh, vigilant to note down like what would be the potential capacity of that bioreactor, what kind of sterilization methods they are using, then other factors like how the temperature, pH, aeration, foam, sand sampling are being controlled, and what is the method of data logging. Okay, is it an automated process or the manual way? So these are the parameters you should keep in account supposedly you visit some industry. So don't be blank over there, like you're not there for a picnic, you're there for a purpose. Okay. Now, how you're going to present your data, right? For that, as I state, you have photographs. So they would be labeled as figure 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it should have a clear caption below the figure, have the reference in the text like see the figure 1, see the figure 2, and then explain what that figure is all about. The images should be high quality and they should be relevant, and then the permissions are obtained for all those photographs. So in one report, try to add maximum 8 to 10 figures. Okay, and here is an example like how you have to label your figure. Like figure 1, industrial scale bioreactor at XYZ Biotech showing control panel and monitoring system. Okay, this is how you have to label your figures. Okay. Now, table presentation. This also you can add in your report where you're having a comparative chart, like you are in a lab setup right now, what kind of instruments you see here and what kind of instruments you see in industry with the same name actually. Okay, and then you can make a report like the key difference over there, what kind of scale these instruments are working on. Okay, so that way it adds more factors or more important information to your report. Now let's look at the chapter 5, which is analysis and discussion. Here what you are basically trying to do is connect the observation to theory. Whatever you have observed in real world, how is that related to your vocational knowledge? Okay, so try to link the observations to your specific course. There should be practical validation of the theoretical concept, and then don't forget to mention the gap between the academic and industrial practices. Okay, this is the key actually. Okay, based on these gaps, you're planning to write the recommendations, what all we can do to improve this uh, okay, gap over there. Then add this comparative analysis as well, where you have the scale differences, technological variations which are being used over there, what is the resource availability and the quality standards. So scale में जैसे आप जो आप book में पढ़े हो, and compared to that what you see in the industry, mention that what kind of technology advancements are there in the industry right now, what are the resources being used to do that kind of work at that scale at industry. Okay, and what all quality standards are being maintained to have an absolute consistency in their output. Okay, so these will be the factors you have to basically write on. And in discussion framework you can draft it like this, like for each major observation, like you have 5 to 6 observations, right? So you can basically start with a brief recall. This is what was observed, how is related to the your current curriculum, okay, your subject, and then what are the possible implications or significance of it, and what was the surprising unexpected thing which you observed. Okay, this will show what kind of critical thinking you are using at this point of time. Okay, and how can this academic training be improved? This would be your recommendation or your suggestion, which maybe in future will be applied, so that it becomes more of an enriching experience for other students who are admitted to these programs. Now, let's talk about here an example. Supposedly you visited a waste treatment plant, okay? And in theory, you have studied that aerobic and anaerobic digestion is studied for waste treatment. But there, when you go, you see a very large scale digester, which is an upflow anaerobic sludge blanket, and it's a reactor for treating around 1 million liters per day effluent. So it's a huge number, right? So in theory it's easy, but when in real world you go, what all problems they face. So you will get an opportunity to talk to the employees over there, the scientists over there, and they will tell you like, okay, this is all we have, the limitations over here when we are working on this large scale. So try to report all those um, limitations, like how or what kind of advances they have, advanced technologies are there to counter those limitations. For example, at this large scale, how you are going to maintain the microbial population, in those digesters. Then what were the other issues when you scale up the process, and then real-time monitoring requirement, um, and what is the cost of doing this whole thing, until it's profitable. Why would someone spend their time and energy on doing it, right? So you have to be very critical in observing from these point of views, and then you can conclude like why you need more practical exposure to operational challenges. Okay, these kind of practical exposure to operational challenges, because this gives you a flavor of real world, like how things work in real world. Then another factor you can add, like how industries work differently than the academic perspective. The parameters could be the time constraint in which the industry is working compared to the research which is done in academic institutions, cost considerations in scaling up, what are the regulatory compliances your students have, those industries have to follow to give a good output, then what kind of teamwork and interdisciplinary approach is being deployed so that those industries give a better output. Next is the problem solving in the real-time situation. They're working on a deadline, how they're going to address the issues which are being suddenly raised up. okay, and how finally they are going to maintain the quality assurance for the protocol. Because at the end, after industry, you're going to get a product from that industry, and that needs to maintain some kind of quality standards so that the public can consume it with confidence. Okay, so quality assurance is also the key factor here. Now, finally, let's talk about the conclusion part. Here, you have to basically summarize your learning outcomes, like what kind of technical skills you gained, what kind of practical knowledge was acquired, or industrial insights you obtained, career awareness you developed, then the recommendations. Okay, these recommendations you will make because now here you are the investigator, right? You faced all those things, like from packing your bags, going to that site and observing and doing your job. Okay, so in this age group, what all your experiences are, when you share it in your report, if that can be implemented, one or two of them, hopefully that will be a good experience for other students who are going to come in other sessions. Okay, your juniors actually. So these recommendations can be directed at like curriculum improvement, or for future study tours, like how these study tours should be conducted, and for students, like how this helps with skill development, and then how you can increase this industrial and academia collaboration. This is one of the key factors, and if this collaboration is intense, we could be in the first world country. Now let's look at the learning outcomes here. First of all, when you have to, how you're going to write this learning outcomes. So you will start with like the understanding of the specific process. What you had before is the theoretical knowledge, and after tour, how that observation has been enhanced or has changed. You have to report it that way. So this would be like enhanced understanding in the area of some process, and then you report. In theory, we studied this, and in the industrial tour, we had the opportunity to look at closely, and this is what we observed. Okay, now you go to the application part. Okay, what would be its future? You studied something new, you gained some new information, how you're going to use it for your future projects or your future career accomplishments. Okay, so this is adding information to your brain, right? आपके सोचने का दायरा बढ़ रहा है इससे. So these are the things you should take care of. Okay, and there will be other outcomes, so you can have like 5 to 6 outcomes, and that way you have a decent conclusion part here. Now let's go to the recommendation section, right, for different stakeholders in this whole process. First of all, for the university, you can recommend like there can be more case studies for visiting industries, because that way it's more getting a flavor of real world. And then we can arrange more regular expert lectures from industry, so that way you have more interaction with the industry. Then the next could be upgrading the lab equipments to match the industrial standards. That way, there is no gap in at least the technology part. Although this is an expensive factor and everyone has their own budget limitations, but definitely something can be done, like some virtual labs or can be there to give you the real experience, on your laptop or your phone. Now, the next section would be for students. So how this is going to help you develop technical skills for the next tour. Okay, and then you can do the profiling for the site you're planning on visiting. You have your thorough background about the company you're planning to visit, and then who are the people you should be meeting, so that could help you, make some career advancement in your in future. Now, finally, for the industry, can they offer more internship opportunities to your students? You can check for these possibilities, and then you can provide detailed technical documentation. Can they provide those detailed technical documentation? Suppose they're showing you the bioreactors, how that is working. If they can provide you that, that will add to your information. And then can they arrange interactive sessions during the visit, so that you have more, active learning about the new site rather than just passively visiting and coming back. Now let's talk about the referencing. So we will follow the APA style, and this you don't have to do much about it. If you know to use the reference manager, that has an option to give you the references in APA style. So minimum, at least you should have 50 to 20 references when you are writing your report. And yeah, so do thorough literature review. Suppose you're planning on visiting some processes or so. Okay, and that literature review you can do on Google Scholar, PubMed. Okay, so these are some trusted sites, but there are others now. So just investigate where else you can do this kind of literature reviews. Then this is your appendices. Um, Although this is not important for your report, but for completion of the whole process, actually, this may be required. Suppose someone wants to replicate the same kind of work which you have done, they would need the additional information. So all those additional information is being added in appendices. Okay, so there would be limit for this as well. So make sure you are aware like how many appendices you can add, okay, in your report, like your detailed itinerary, the detailed one, the permission letters you got, observation checklist you were using to do that kind of study, what all photographs you took, like additional, if any, collected brochures and literature, you can add that, what kind of questionnaire samples you use, and then the attendance sheet, how many individuals visited that site. So this could be other aspect. Now let's look at the writing style. First of all, you have to maintain the academic tone here. Okay, and how will you maintain that? So you have to write it in third person preferred. Past tense would be for observed, and then present tense would be for general facts. Okay, avoid personal opinions like I felt, I believe. This is not your a personal thing, this is a scientific document, so you have to be to the point actually. Okay, and then use objective language, be precise and concise, and please don't use the colloquial or the informal language while writing your scientific this report. Now let's look at the formatting specification. This would be different for different universities, but let's focus on like right now the Sarguja University. So they expect you to write it in Times New Roman with a font size of 12 points. Line spacing between will be 1.5 and the margins on all four sides would be 1 inch. Okay. Don't forget to add page number at the bottom center. Okay, so for initial preliminary pages, you will be using Roman style page number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then for the main body of the report, you will be using the Arabic style, the one which you use 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then for chapter headings, you will be using bold 14 point, and for section heading, you will be using bold 12 points, and then the alignment should be justified. Common mistakes to avoid. First of all is the poor quality images. Please don't do that. Okay, try to have a good enriched image to add in your report, and make absolutely sure that page numbers are not missing. Don't use inconsistent formatting because it's the most annoying part of any report. um, Plagiarism, always cite from the source. Okay, and about plagiarism, in your report when you run it on Turnitin, it should not be more than 20%. Okay, so make sure your plagiarism certificate is added to your report so that we know it's your original work. Look for the grammatical errors. If there are any, use softwares like Grammarly to correct them. Then you have the subjective opinion instead of facts. Okay, you don't need that, just state the fact what you observed, and make sure you have all the references. Now let's look at the evaluation criteria, how your reports will be graded. Okay, first would be the structure and formatting. Second will be the quality of the content and the depth you have used to write that report. What is the observational accuracy, what you're reporting in your report. Okay, and then the analysis and discussion part. We are very curious to read this to see what kind of or what level of critical thinking you have employed or deployed in writing that report. And finally, your conclusions and recommendations. This can further help us streamline this whole process and make it more user friendly or enriching for other students coming in next sessions. Then this is the timeline for the report writing. In ideal world scenario, yes, we would expect that you start early. In week 1 you do this, in week 2 you do this, and if you can maintain like 50% of the of what is being mentioned in this slide, I think you will be in good shape by the end when you complete your report. And please don't leave it for the last minute writing your report, because it's very creative process and you should have fun in doing this whole process. Okay, so give appropriate time. Suppose now you nothing is decided about your site visit, right? So have a general idea where you might be visiting, what all you will be seeing over there, so that on that basis you can start doing your literature review and those kind of stuff. Contact your faculty members and see, is there any site in their mind where they would plan you to take you all there. Okay, so that way you can start your groundwork now, and then by the time you visit and come, then you have to just plug in the data and update your report and then submit it. So this is how you can do this. Data organization tips. So this is one of the important or critical aspect for any science student. Okay, in your laptop, at least have these 6 folders. First of all, the photos folder where you will be dumping all the photos you will be clicking at the site. Then you have the folder for notes where you will be writing day-wise note and what kind of things you observed in the field. Then documentation, like what kind of brochures or handouts you received. Take an image of that and save it in this folder. And then the references, like what kind of articles and websites you visited to gain more information about that respective site. Then you have the drafts folder. Here you have the files chapter wise, like 1 2 3 4 5. That way you're working on individual file. And finally, you have one folder where you compile all these files and you have the report ready. So try to you employ this practice right from now, so that way when you look after 5 to 10 years, you have a better organization still skills, like how you should be, doing this whole process. Because at the end of the day, process matters, right? And if it's more random, then the output will be random, but if it's consistent, the results will be phenomenal. So take into account how to use these photographs effectively. As I mentioned, you should maximum use 8 to 10 photographs and select the most representative image. Okay, don't repeat the photographs, the same photograph multiple times, and obtain the written permission if needed for taking those photographs. How, if you can include the scale when relevant, that will be nice. Avoid personal or group photos. We don't want to see you in the report, we want to see what you have worked on the report. Okay, focus on the process and the equipments you are using, and the images should be like high resolution. At least have them like 300 dpi, because if it's less than that, the images are a bit fuzzy or blur and it doesn't solve any purpose there. Okay, and this is what we talked about. This is how the outline should look for your report. And then this is your personal checklist here, what all you should do finally before submitting these reports. All the pages are duly numbered. Page count, what it is like. All required certificates are included. Table of content to match with actual pages. Figures and tables are properly numbered. Reference formatted consistently. Grammar and spell check done. Plagiarism check is being completed. Don't forget to add the certificate for the plagiarism check. Okay, your signature from your supervisor is obtained, and then check for the print quality after you get the report printed. Now, submission requirement. This could be different for different departments, but this is what commonly is observed. 2 hard copies, spiral bound, needs to be submitted, and one soft copy PDF format. Okay, this will be submitted to your respective department. The deadline for deadlines, just look at the notification and try to submit it before the deadline. Follow strict formatting guidelines and for your cover pages and other font colors as well. Now the comes the most of the important aspect, the role of your supervisor. I would state that be in constant communication with your supervisor because he exactly knows what is expected in this on-site visit. Uh, when you are in constant communication, you have a constant feedback loop over there. So that way you can add more information to your more detailed information to your report because he's the person who is going to approve your tour plan and plan your itinerary. He will be making observations, guide you about the observations focus areas. He will be reviewing your draft for chapters. Okay, he will be providing you feedback on your analysis, and he would be finally certifying your report. Okay, and then your preliminary submissions will also be evaluated by him. So be in good terms with your advisor and get things done, and that way it's constructive for everyone. Okay, now what kind of digital tools you will be using for doing this kind of work? For writing you may use MS Word and LibreOffice. This is an open source. Suppose you can't take a subscription or you don't have the MS Word, you can use LibreOffice as well. Then for references you can use Zotero or Mendeley. For photos you have different softwares now, and so I'm not naming any specific. And then for making diagram you can use draw.io, lucid chart. And for plagiarism check, every university has a software for this, and if it's not there, try to collaborate with other universities and get your report checked for plagiarism. And we are expecting plagiarism to be not more than 20%. So when you run your report, don't include the reference part in your plagiarism for plagiarism check, because when you add references, then it will match like 50% to 60%. So you just add the main body of your report to the plagiarism check. That way you have the exact percentage how much the data is plagiarized. And finally, uh, cloud storage. Take your data backup regularly because you never know when your phone is going to crash, your laptop is going to crash. Okay, so if you have a systematic data backup system, that will be good for you. And if you get in this practice now, that way it will help you in your career growth as well. Academic integrity. So essentials are here. Always credit information source. Please don't copy from previous reports. Obtain permissions for all the photographs. Report facts accurately. Acknowledge all the help you receive. This is one of the most important aspect. Okay, don't be selfish there. Maintain confidentiality if required, and then submit original work only. Finally, what are the benefits of writing this report? First of all, it helps you develop your technical writing skills. It creates a portfolio for your job interview. It demonstrates your practical exposure. It showcases your observational skills. It displays analytical ability. It proves project completion capability by you, and it enhances your research aptitude. Okay. Final advice is don't wait for the last minute. Be organized. Keep daily notes during tour. Focus on quality over quantity. Follow format strictly. Seek feedback from your guide regularly. Proofread multiple times. Submit before deadline. Okay, these are some examples like how you can title your report. For example, you're visiting some microbiology industry, then you can say that, okay, industrial application of microbial biotechnology as study to a report. So you can add it like that. Okay, so these are some examples you can refer for your report writing. What is the expected learning outcome when this report is written? It will demonstrate the ability to document field observations scientifically. It will show correlation between your theoretical knowledge and the practical exposure. It will develop skills in technical report writing. It will enhance your analytical and critical thinking ability. Finally, it will prepare for future research work and industrial employment. Okay, now when you're stuck, what you're going to do? Okay, first of all, you can reach out to your HOD, your assigned supervisors or faculties, department office staffs for any clarification. You can also reach out to your senior students if they can help you out, and make it a habit to frequently visit your notice board, frequently check your WhatsApp groups where updates are being posted about the recent activities in academic setting. And then for formats, you can look at the department website. Best wishes, do well, and try to submit your report on time and make your department proud. With that, I'd like to thank you everyone, and this is all from me.